Welcome to the Transom Podcast, a monthly roundup of the new features on the transom.org website, providing mathematical puzzles, games, learning activities, and the ever-popular mathematics lesson starter of the day. Here's your host, John Tranter.
Hello and welcome to episode number 55 of the Transom Mathematics Podcast for June 2019. And as usual, we'll start with a puzzle of the month. Here we go. Once upon a time, Patsy wrote the following in her diary. The day before yesterday, Percy was 13 years old. Next year, he will turn 16. How can she have been correct in writing that statement in her diary? The day before yesterday, Percy was 13 years old, and next year he will turn 16. So the answer will be at the end of this podcast, and you'll have time to have a think about that while I ramble on about the other additions to the Transom Mathematics website during this last month. In fact, the puzzle that I just posed, is it a puzzle or is it a riddle? So I've always thought the difference lies in the fact that a riddle has some sort of hidden meaning or requires lateral, sort of out-of-the-box thinking. It's the sort of puzzle that maybe has a pun involved in it, or when you hear the answer you think, oh, why didn't I think of that? Whereas as a puzzle, perhaps is a little more closely aligned to a mathematical problem, and the method of solving a puzzle is a little more rigorous or classical or usual. I'm not sure. Anyway, those two words have their definitions in the dictionary, and so does conundrum. There's another one. What is a conundrum? Well, I've actually got my lovely copy of the Illustrated Oxford Dictionary right here. I don't know if you can hear me flicking through the pages, but I'm just looking up conundrum, and the definition is a riddle. Oh well, there you go. Anyway, last month I collected some of my favourite mathematical riddles and posted them onto the Transom website. Each riddle is presented in a format ready for you to project onto a whiteboard in front of a whole class so that they can enjoy trying to solve it together. So that can be reached from the Fun Maths page, or it can be reached from the main topic page, or you can even do a search in the little search box on the Transom website to find riddles. But of course, everything I talk about in this podcast can be found in the transcript, which is the newsletter. That's transom.org/newsletter. Oh, by the way, as I was looking up the word riddle in my Illustrated Oxford Dictionary, I noticed that the word rhombohedron was on the same page. Now there's a word that isn't used very often, a rhombohedron. Can you sketch one? Well, to see what it looks like, you'll have to go to transom.org/newsletter. There's a diagram there, but an interesting word that's not used very much. So while you think about all of that, what else has been added to the Transom website this last month? Well, the Advanced Starters collection has increased. I've come across a few new ideas for ways to start off maths lessons for the senior students, and I've linked to them from the main starter page. If you just go to the Starter of the Day page, there's an Advanced Starters button at the bottom. But also the Advanced Starters now appear on the various topics pages. Just after the starters, there's a little red line and then Advanced Starters. But of course, not all topics lend themselves to Advanced Starters, so you'll only see them for the topics that do. Particularly the 3 new topics that were added this month: calculus, logarithms, and functions. And it will take time for these topics to have as many resources as the more established topics. And it does actually take a bit longer to create the resources for some of these. I've just been spending so many hours creating, well, at the moment it's got 10 levels, but I plan it to have 12 levels, an online exercise on differentiation. And it's not making up the questions that takes the time. It's making up questions involving a random numbers, so that each time you refresh the page, you actually get a different set of questions. And more importantly, it's trying to think of all the different ways students might type in their answers that eats up the hours. You can imagine, can't you, if you have some sort of polynomial and it needs differentiating, perhaps the differential could be factorized, or perhaps the fractions can be written in different ways, or even the terms in a different order. So trying to account for all of these when the system marks the student's answer right or wrong, that's quite a challenge and it takes a long time. So for those of you that are teaching calculus, that exercise is up and online ready now. Also, a curriculum page for Beyond GCSE has been added. So if you go to curriculum, which is the bottom of every page, the little black box at the bottom of every page, there's some links there. Middle column, right at the bottom, it says curriculum. And now I've added the syllabus for the core A-level. And for those of you on the international circuit, I'm starting to add the statements for the new IB courses that begin this August. They are called, if I can remember, Analysis and Approaches. That's one of them. And the other one is called Applications and Interpretation. Wow. Couldn't they have come up with simpler titles for the courses? And both of them begin with the letter A as well. Oh dear. It's going to take people a while to get their head round those new non-snappy titles, but there you go.
You are listening to the Transum podcast. You can find Transum Mathematics at www.transum.org.
Okay, I looked back at the newsletter, the podcast as well, for this time last year, and I was actually writing at that time about the royal game of that I'd just seen in the British Museum. And my version on the website is called the Remainder Race. And during the course of the year, I've added a few little extras to this activity. And it really is great to be a fly on the wall. Well, not literally, but anyway, as I was yesterday, listening to youngsters taking their time to understand the rules and then discuss strategies to make this board game so enjoyable. So it's originally over 4,500 years old, this particular game, but my version, of course, the Remainder Race, is only 1 year old. But it's interactive, it's online, and it's got a mathematical link, so do give it a go, either with your class playing in pairs if they have access to technology, or if you're a maths tutor and you tutor students individually, a great way to end your tutorial, the last 5 or 10 minutes, is to play a game against the student, you versus the student, and Remainder Race is one of a good game that works really well in that situation. Okay, this month I would like to welcome new or returning subscribers to Transum Mathematics from the United Kingdom, the United States, China, Malaysia, Thailand, Australia, New Zealand, Netherlands, the Middle East, Hong Kong and Korea. Yes, there are people using Transum all around the world. So any one time zone, I can see from the analytics program, there are lots of people tuning in and doing activities, which gives me a really good feeling to know that it's being useful for so many people. If you're listening to this podcast from the Transum website, you might also like to know that you can actually subscribe to the podcast so that it comes automatically to your device every month, on the first of every month. You can find it on Stitcher or Apple Podcasts. And you can also follow Transum on Twitter. to get the latest lowdown of what's going on. And you could actually like Transom on Facebook as well. It's all over the place. A nice little gift that I received this month is a book called Maths with Bad Drawings, or to be more precise, Math with Bad Drawings, because it was written by an American, Ben Orlin, and it is really a super book to read. I have it on the bedside cabinet and digest a few pages before I drop off to sleep, but it's written very nicely, lots of humour in there, and lots of little bad drawings, which are quite funny. Anyway, the first chapter describes a way to make the game of noughts and crosses more interesting. Of course, the Americans call noughts and crosses tic-tac-toe, and the first chapter of the book describes ultimate tic-tac-toe. Now, just to describe it to you over the airways here, if you can imagine the normal little noughts and crosses grid, which is 2 vertical lines and 2 horizontal lines, looks a bit like a hash symbol. The Americans call that a pound sign, and I have no idea why. But apparently the proper name for that is an octothorpe. Who'd have guessed? Anyway, imagine one big octothorpe, and then in each of the 9 cells there is a smaller octothorpe. And the idea is that you play noughts and crosses. The first player can go in any small octothorpe anywhere, but then the position that they play on the small octothorpe determines the next player's position on the big octothorpe and the grid that they have to play in. Anyway, I won't say too much about it because I hope to make an online version of it. I have a long-haul flight coming up on the 20th of this month, and I love a little project like this to do on the plane because it makes the time go so quickly when you're engrossed in something as challenging as making something that reacts to pupils' moves and tries to anticipate what they will do and react accordingly. Anyway, that's a great challenge for me, so look out next month. Hopefully it will be finished by then. So finally, the answer to this month's puzzle. If you remember at the beginning of the podcast, I said the day before yesterday Percy was 13 years old. Next year he will turn 16. Well, the story takes place on the 1st of January this year, 2019. Because the day before yesterday was the 30th of December 2018, and Percy was 13 on that day. But on the 31st of December 2018, it was his birthday, so he became 14. So that means he will be 15 on the last day of this year, the 31st of December 2019. So then next year, 2020, he will turn 16. So it's all very logical, I suppose, when you think of it that way. And if you do want to see the picture of the I forgot what it's called now, the rhombohedron, do have a look at transom.org/newsletter, where there is a diagram. That's all for now. Have a wonderful June. See you next time. Bye.
Thank you for downloading and listening to the Transom podcast. You can find the website at www.transom.org, where you're welcome to use all of the activities absolutely free, or jump in with both feet and become a Transom subscriber.